The first thing I'll ask you about is your family's genocide history. Do you know where your family came from in historic Armenia?
Well, my great great grandmother suffered from the Armenian genocide and she witnessed it. And the rest of her family were drowned in a lake. And she was the only one that survived. And she, along with another family, survived all the way to Aleppo and started a family.
Do you know, I'm sorry, which towns they were from? Did you say that?
Einteb.
And do you know what year, like 15, 16, 17, that they were moved out of Aintab?
She was around 11 years old. Yeah.
And it was, sorry, 1915 or 1916, or you don't know that part?
No, I don't. I'm not sure about that part.
And do you know which lake they were taken to?
No, I don't.
And do you know what work they did in Aintab before they were forced to leave?
In Einteb, they did the typical work that a girl would do back in the day. In a house, they would cook and they would do farming and everything. Yeah.
And how did your grandmother survive?
Well, there was very little
Or great
food.
great grandmother, sorry.
There was very little food, but somehow she was stuck with the family that she came to Aleppo with, and they helped her to settle in, and they took care of her.
And do you know if that family was Armenian?
I think they were Armenian, yes.
And when she got to Aleppo, did she ever tell you, or did you hear from your parents about the difficulties that maybe she experienced when first trying to settle down there and start a new life there?
Well, first of all, it wasn't their country, and so they didn't know any language, how to speak. They didn't have a home. The people there in Aleppo helped them settle in and have a home, start new jobs, and start up a new life. But they went through a lot of difficulties in terms of finding houses and getting food and learning a new language, yes.
And did you ever hear any stories about um, any of those difficulties? Like any specific story that comes to mind that you remember?
Well, I read a book about this kid who went through the genocide, and he wrote the book. And he said that he was in an orphanage, and he told how difficult it was to live in an orphanage with 400 kids and to eat one meal a day, and it was just bread, and they would get through so much just to get that bread. Yeah.
And do you know if your grandma was in an orphanage, or your great great grandma was in an orphanage?
No, but she lived with other little kids and a few supervisors took care of them. Yeah, it was an orphanage specifically.
And so, why did you read this book?
It was actually an assignment for my Armenian class, Armenian literature class, but I ended up loving it and I kept reading the works of that author, other books, yeah. But it
Was
was
that
very interesting.
was that an assignment from Syria?
Yes, yes.
Um, and so, were a lot of your assignments and a lot of the work that you did in school in Syria about Armenian topics?
Yes, because I went to a private Armenian school. I went to Lazar Najarian Kalski Benkan Getronagan Vajaran. And so I took Armenian class every single day. It was in my schedule. And we talked Armenian. Yeah. And so I learned there were even Armenian history competitions that I participated in. And I always got first place. I loved studying Armenian history and literature. It was very interesting.
And how did you balance that with learning like Syrian history and literature and culture? Did you also have classes for that?
Yes, because I live in Syria, it's mandatory to have also a Syrian curriculum. So I learned everything else math, science, physics, chemistry, everything in Arabic. So I also had Arabic literature and Arabic history classes and government classes. Yeah.
And how did you feel differently when you were learning Armenian history and Armenian classes versus when you were learning the Syrian history and Arabic classes?
I I felt honored to learn the both of them because I'm a little it's a metro. Because I'm a little Syrian and a little Armenian and a whole lot of both.
That's so pretty. Hold on. I want
Okay.
you to say that better. Let's see that. One second.
It's probably the metro.
Okay, so yeah, how did you feel to have to learn both?
Well, they were both very interesting because I was born in Syria, and so it's very interesting to me to learn the history about Syria, the country that I live in, and also about my great grandparents that lived in Armenia. And so I felt honored to learn the both of them, and because I'm a little bit of Syrian and a little bit Armenian and a whole lot of both.
So if I were to ask you felt more Syrian or more Armenian or more Syrian Armenian, how would you define yourself?
I would define myself as Syrian Armenian because I was born in Syria, but I can never forget where I actually came from. And so I'm proud to be Syrian Armenian
And why do you think it's so important to you to remember where you came from?
because it defines you, and it's who you are. It's part of who you are and your identity. And so you should be proud of that.
And for you, why is it important to preserve and remember being Armenian? It seems like you learn this history, you're telling the stories of your great grandparents. So for you, why is that important?
Because the Armenians are one of the oldest cultures and people in the world. And just learning the history of it tells me a lot about how resilient the Armenians are. And so, being an Armenian and preserving that for me is very important because for the coming generations, it's really important to learn how to be resilient and stand up for yourself. And the Armenians really taught me how to do that.
Do you think that in any way learning about resilience and restarting new lives um, from your ancestors helped you in starting a new life for yourself when you left Syria?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. From the stories that my grandmother told me about the genocide, it gave me the motivation to be able to overcome the difficulties in when I moved to America in 2016. And so yeah, I learned to be patient, really patient when I moved there. Yeah, because the language was new. I didn't know anyone. There was only my aunt. I didn't know the school system. I didn't have any friends. And so it was a completely new life. Like I was born all over again.
Do you feel like in any way what's happening now to the Armenians in Syria is similar to what happened during the genocide?
A little bit, yes, because the Armenians are also being moved away from Syria, from their new home. Not because of the government, in my opinion, but because of outside forces. But yeah, yeah, I do feel that.
And going back to life in Syria, in what ways did you celebrate or practice being Armenian? So you went to Armenian school, and like what else did you do?
I went to an Armenian school. I did scouts. I was part of an Armenian marching band. I was part of the orchestra, an Armenian swim team, an Armenian basketball team, and yeah.
And did you have any non-Armenian activities?
No, I didn't. No, it was mostly my school was linked to the Agum that I was part of, so I was always involved in Armenian activities. But sometimes for scouts, we would do like regional scouts with all the other Muslim scouts also. So I met a lot of people from there, and when I became part of the national junior team for my swim team, I met a lot of Arab friends, Syrian friends, and they were very nice. Yeah.
And yeah, what were relationships like with non-Armenians? Did you have, outside of those regional events, did you have non-Armenian friends that you saw, daily or weekly in Haleb?
Some of them, yes, from the basketball competitions, and we didn't have any differences. It was like we're just normal people interacting together.
And your building, sorry, what part of Aleppo are you from?
We lived in Slimani.
And was that part mostly Armenian? Was your building all Armenians? Like, what was the demographic?
It used to be mostly Christians. There were some Armenians, but it's mostly Christians. But after the war started, people from the outskirts of Aleppo started settling in the city, and so there were a lot of Muslims in my building. It used to be only Armenians, and it was the part of Slimani that we lived in. It was very, very dangerous. So a few, like 100 or 200 meters from us, there were always attacks happening and going on. And sometimes we wouldn't even be able to come home because of the bombs that would fall in front of the building. And we tried to rebuild the windows, the glass windows that were like in front of our house. But they fell so many times from the bombs that at some point we just put like duct tapes on the windows. We didn't even try at that point.
When you said people were coming in from outside of Aleppo, was it because the city center was safer than those villages?
Yes, and because their homes were already ruined and they didn't have anywhere else to go.
And most of those people living in the outskirts were not Christian.
No, no, they weren't.
And so you think like the demographic of Aleppo has changed?
Yes, it dramatically changed. There, it was like 60% Muslims and 40% Christians, I would say, but now it's 80% Muslims and 20% Christians. Yeah.
And so you lived during the war for about 5 years.
Yes.
In 2016.
Yes.
So for you, what was like the first sign that okay, the war is now here in Aleppo?
Well, I was out shopping with my mom, and I was going home on my way, and my sister was home alone by herself, and a bomb was dropped like 300 or 400 meters away from us on a government building, and the entire ground was shaking. I remember I was in fifth grade, and a man was walking in front of me, and from the pressure his ears started bleeding. I can't ever forget that picture. And then my sister started calling my mom like, oh, I saw all the blood that happened and everything, and she was home by herself. And I started hysterically crying, and it was really bad. And that's how I knew that the war started and my life was going to change forever.
That was what year?
2012, the summer of 2012.
And do you know who threw that bomb or where it came from? Which group?
No, no, I don't.
And in order, like when different bombs fell or when there were different shootings, in order to find out who did it or where it came from, did you read different news sources? Did you watch different TV channels? Like how were people finding out who was doing what?
We watched different media and TV channels, but people were able to tell which media was right or wrong because we knew ever since the Armenian genocide that the government was taking a good care of us, and so we were certain, 100% sure that it wasn't the government's fault. And so people stopped watching some of the news that told that, oh, it's the government's fault and that the president should step down.
And do you think I've heard the criticism, I've heard people say, oh, just because, the government is supporting a community doesn't mean the government's like doing the right thing. So sometimes people will say, oh, the Armenians are biased because they only support the government because the government has always supported them. But do you think that it goes beyond that, to think that like the Armenian support for the government is not just because the government helps them, but also because they really believe that like other groups are doing these things?
Well, the Armenians help people everywhere they go, not just in Syria. I live in America. Just because the government helped me and saved my life doesn't mean that I shouldn't help them back. It doesn't work that way. We always help. Armenians always help without expecting to receive something back from other people. And so I don't believe that the Armenians are biased about the government.
And do you think that, which news sources do you think are the most biased?
Al Jazeera, some I think European channels. I don't follow all of them, but from the Arabic channels, I know Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya. Yeah.
And why do you think those are biased?
Because we watch the news and the stuff that happened right in front of our eyes are completely reversed in the media. And so that's why we don't believe them. Something that we saw with our eyes is being lied to the entire world. That's why we don't believe that.
Yeah, I've heard that from other people too. Do you have any examples of a time when you remember seeing something and then reading it being different?
Well, for the bomb that fell on the government building, they told that the government threw that bomb. But why would they throw a bomb on a government building? Why would the government bomb itself? That doesn't make sense.
And so living during the war, how were you getting information about, okay, this place is dangerous, don't go there, and this area right now is being bombed, don't go there. Like, what systems did you guys create to try to avoid danger?
It's a little depressing to say that we found out how places were dangerous when we heard about people dying, frequent deaths and casualties. And so when we heard, for example, oh, Sheikh Taha, there are a lot of people getting out of their homes and just settling in other areas, we found out that, oh, okay, so we shouldn't go there anymore. Or so many people died there, so we shouldn't go there anymore. Yeah.
And you said Sulaymaniyah was one of the worst areas in Aleppo, or no?
No, Sheikh Taha, yeah, Sheikh Taha was the worst.
And you're from
Yeah.
Sulaymaniyah.
Yeah, yeah.
And were there a lot of bombings in your area, a lot of shootings? Snipers?
Yeah, gradually there were a lot of shootings, but no snipers. No. The places that were already left, that people already left, there were a lot of snipers, and so people wouldn't even be able to go back to get their stuff or at least their clothes.
And do you know, like, in your opinion, what is the reason for this conflict? Like, why did the war start? Why is it still going on 8 years later?
Um, I'm pretty sure it started for a specific reason, but I don't know why. It's probably for money or for gas or something. And it's against the larger forces of the world um fighting in Syria, fighting against each other in Syria. The people don't have to do anything with that. And but I think it's pointless to continue to fight to this point for 8 years.
Um, do you think that the people have become more divided in Syria?
No, I think they became more united and to help each other out more. And yeah, we started some little organizations for the people that are financially needed to help them with food and clothes. And I volunteered with them too.
In Syria?
Yeah.
So for people who were maybe more affected than your family was,
Yeah.
you were helping give them things that they needed.
Yes. Yeah.
What was it called?
Excuse
The
me.
organization, what was it
Oh,
called?
AGBU. Yeah. I was part of
HGB was
AGBU.
helping. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And question, do you think that the Armenian community in any way has grown weaker because of the war?
No, I think the Armenian community grew stronger even though more people left because the Armenian community used to be divided more before the war between Home Entman and AGBU. But after the war started, people realized that people need people, and so they were more united even though more people left. So everyone helped each other more.
And was the Syrian Armenian community a strong Armenian community?
Yes, it was a very strong Armenian community. It's still strong, but before the war, it was a lot stronger because there were 14 private Armenian schools in Syria and so many churches that most of them are now destroyed. And right now, there used to be, like, for Hamaskain, there used to be 6 elementary Armenian schools, and now there's only just one. And so the schools are a lot less, but people are still trying to live and rebuild that Armenian community by uniting together.
And what was your favorite part about being part of the Armenian community in Halep?
I loved learning about my culture and spreading about it. And I also loved my friends and the Armenian traditions that we did together. Yeah, I loved everything about the Armenian community.
And do you think that you would go back?
I would love to go back for a visit, but I can't imagine myself living back there because it's my home and I love it a lot. But I mean, I started a new life in America and I have a better future there. But I obviously miss my friends and all my cousins, and I really want to go back someday just to visit and see everything.
Have you heard from friends and cousins, like, what it's like now? Have you heard about buildings that are changed and how life has changed?
Well, life is getting better, but very slowly. The buildings, they're trying to rebuild them, but it's very difficult for the government financially. So they're trying to rebuild it, but everything is getting better gradually and very, very slowly. Yeah.
And what was your favorite part about living in Syria?
The social life. I had a great social life. I was always surrounded by my family and my friends, and I was really connected to my school and the scouts that I was a part of, the Agump, and they always taught us to do community work and not to expect anything from anyone and just to give back as much as I can.
And how is that different from living in America?
Well, living in America, first of all, it was a completely different language. The way that they think is also very different. For example, when people go to college, most of them dorm and live in the college and move out of their house, but that's not the way it works in Syria. Everyone lives with their family until they get married. It's a different way of lifestyle. I started liking it because it taught me to be independent. It's just different perspectives. I guess right now I'm in the middle between my perspective as a Syrian Armenian and as an American, and I like the both of them a lot because as an American, I learned to be more independent and to trust myself more. And for Syrian, I learned to give back to my community and really connect with the people that I love.
And what differences do you see between the Armenian community in America and in Syria?
Well, for the Armenian American community that I'm a part of in America, most of them speak English. And I remember the first day that I joined the Armenian American dance group, I was trying to introduce myself to everyone and talk to everyone, and I was talking in Armenian. And then I saw everyone talking to each other in English, and I was like, oh my God, maybe I should have talked in English. But I always wonder if they do know Armenian and they're Armenian, why do they talk in English? That's like my biggest question, I guess. Yeah. But in terms of social life and the traditions that they do and everything, it's pretty much the same. Yeah.
Do you feel at home in America?
Um, it took me some time, but I started to feel like it. It took me some time slowly because I was away from all of my friends and all of my cousins, and it was only like my small family, and I grew up in a really big family, so it took me some time. Yeah.
How many years have you been in America?
3 years.
And um, when you got there, did any organizations help you?
No, no. We were, my aunt helped us. She started doing our paperwork when I was born after the 9/11 incident. She was concerned that something might happen, maybe. And so she started doing our paperwork. And luckily, we got our visa interview in Jordan, in Amman, um, when I was 14 years old and I turned 15 in America. Yeah. It was in December 2015, our interview.
Sorry, but you did the paperwork in 2001
Yes.
for you to get visas to come to America?
Yeah, it took 14 years for the paperwork to get done. The immigration paperwork, yeah.
When did she submit it?
She submitted after the 9/11, I think October 2nd or 3rd. Yeah. It took 14 years.
Oh my gosh. And did you get there? So when you came to America, it wasn't with refugee status, it was with.
It was as an immigrant, and I got a green card when I entered America.
Wow. And I think it's very rare, not rare, but rarer than other countries for America to accept Syrian refugees specifically.
Yes.
So do you know, like, I don't know, have you met other Syrian refugees or other Syrian immigrants in America, and have you talked to them about what the process was like?
I haven't met any Syrian refugees, but I've met immigrants from my dance group, and they moved here 5 years ago. And
America.
yeah, they moved to America 5 years ago, and they entered as tourists, and and then they stayed there, and so they got their green card really late because of legal issues.
And so for you and your family, before the war started, did you, besides your aunt potentially having some like idea that something could happen so
Hmm.
many years before,
Yeah.
did you and your family see any clues or hints that the war was going to start before it started?
No, no. My family didn't see anything coming, war-wise. But whenever the paperwork would come, they would always say that we'd go on a trip to America, not to live there, because everything was fine. everyone was here, and the schools were open. There were really good jobs, so why would we leave our home?
And then when the war did start,
Hmm.
why did you stay in Syria for 4 years of war?
Well, we did try to move to Armenia, but there weren't any good job offers for my dad or my mom. And also, they weren't. My mom and dad didn't really trust the quality of education here, and so we moved back to Syria. Yeah.
Moved back, so you did come to Armenia to try to live here.
Yeah, in 2012, when everyone stayed because the airport closed in the summer, so everyone's fathers turned back, and we tried to stay here for 2 months, 2 months and a half, but it didn't work out, and so we came back. And I remember the airport was surrounded by terrorists, so we had to stay in the airport for 24 hours until they cleared it. And it was very dangerous. There were a lot of snipers, so we had to get back home with our heads like that, like that, like the entire way from the airport back home. And we were stopped also by terrorists, and they wanted to open our bags and everything. And my mom was so scared. She told them, she got really mad, and she told them, go ahead, open, we don't have anything to hide from you. It was very scary. I can't forget the picture of that guy that was on the bus with us. He was just talking, and he was crazy.
Sorry. So you went to Armenia what year?
2012. That was the first time that I went there. That was the time that everyone decided to suddenly stay because the airport closed.
Okay, so your family left and everyone said we're staying because the airport's closed, but you
Yeah, it was open for like a week or something. They said it was very dangerous, but you can go back if you want to, and so we went back
to Armenia.
to Syria.
But when did you get to Armenia?
To Armenia, it was in July, the beginning of July.
Of 2012.
Yes.
And then after how many months you decided we're going back to Syria?
Mid September.
Oh, okay, so you only stayed for like 2 months in Armenia.
2.5 months, yeah.
And then you came back. They said it was dangerous, but you can go back to Syria if you want.
Yeah.
So you went, and what was the path like? It was Yerevan to.
Yerevan to Aleppo.
Oh, direct.
Yeah, but the airport, like right after we left, the airport closed like 2 days later, and it hasn't been open until now.
Right after you like got out of the airport.
Yeah.
In Syria to go right back to your house.
Yes.
So, then once you're in the airport in September.
Yeah.
It was surrounded by terrorists. Do you know
Yeah.
which group?
No, I don't. But my dad still has a picture of my brother. He was really young. It was 8 years ago, so he was 3 years old. He was sleeping, and then there were soldiers on his right and on his left with like guns, and he still has that picture.
Wait, but you were in the airport. So when were you with the soldiers? You mean in the airport? That's
There were soldiers in the airport too. Yeah.
And then you don't know which group it was. Did you see any of the terrorists?
No.
Okay.
No.
And so then once you got out of the airport, it was clear.
We stopped once. They stopped us
You
to
were in
to
a
check
car
for our
or a
bags.
bus?
A bus, a minibus.
Oh, you were
It was us and another family too.
going back to your house.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the terrorist groups were completely gone. They did stop you.
Yeah, they did stop us, and they had really big guns and rifles and all the missiles and everything, like like in front of us. I saw all of them, and then one of them went on a bus. He had a really big beard, and he was like, "Oh, open up your bags. I'm gonna check everything. If you have a knife, I'm gonna kill you." And he started threatening, and so my mom was really scared and also really mad. So she started yelling at him, "Go ahead and open everything. We don't have anything to hide." And so he started just laughing really stupidly. Like he was being really stupidly sarcastic and arrogant and stupid. And so he said, "Oh, okay, it's fine. You can go." So he left the bus, and then we left.
Do you remember anything about his uniform and like what he looked like? Because sometimes like certain groups wore certain uniforms. So if you remember, if he had like a headband or a.
Well, he had the Free Army flag on his chest. The soldier thing that they wear that they wore. Yeah.
Maybe he was part of the Jeshalhada.
Yeah.
Student Army.
Yeah.
And do you know what they wanted, like what they're looking for?
Well, most of them took people for ransom and wanted a lot of money. One of my sister's friend's dad, he got arrested from them, and they owned a factory, and so they arrested him and they tortured him really badly until they got the money, and they got, I think, 20 million Syrian lira.
Wow. You don't know which group that was either, or it was the same group?
I think it was Jabhat al-Nusra. Yeah.
And do you remember what you were feeling in that moment when you came on the bus?
I felt very scared, but also really outraged of because why is it happening? We didn't do anything. Why would they do that to us? I was really outraged. Yeah.
Do you think in any way the conflict is about religion?
No, I don't. Because all these years, people lived very peacefully together, the Christians and the Muslims. So why would a conflict happen now? I don't see a reason.
And so after that moment, you got home, and then it was 2012. And so what was life like then, from 2012 to 2016?
Well, it gradually got worse. For me, the worst year was 2013 because it went downhill very quickly, and we didn't have electricity for a year and 8 months. We didn't have internet access for 7 months. We didn't have water for 4 months. When you opened the faucet, no water would come out. So my dad still has pain in his knees from carrying water from the wells. Some kids wouldn't even go to school just to carry water from the wells. Um, yeah, and then from there I started getting used to the life that I had, and I started wearing also glasses in 7th grade because I would study under the light of a candle for school. We didn't have any electricity, and we couldn't afford to have a generator to have electricity. So
And who would be the ones to go get water? Like usually it was just like one person from each household would go, or there were people who went for the whole community.
It depends. For Armenians, most of the parents didn't let their kids miss school for water, but some of the other families they couldn't afford to have any less because they were a lot, so they needed a lot of help. So most of their community went and got water. Yeah.
Where was their water? Like the well was far away, or?
No, it was right in front of our house, but our house was on the fourth floors, and we didn't have an electricity to use the elevator, so my dad would carry it up and down.
And what was it like walking to school every day?
Walking to school, I would take a different path every day because the path that I took, for example, yesterday, there was a story. I took a path to school the other day, and the next day, the person that took the same path as I did died because of a bomb. So every day I would try to take a different path and walk from the sides in case a bomb falls. And I would always walk with my mom. There were no cars. We had a car, but my dad used it for his work, so we couldn't go by car. Um, yeah, there were a lot of times that I made it alive by chance. I would come back home and then hear that, oh, this person died that took the same path as me minutes after I passed that same path. It was, yeah, I'm very fortunate to be alive. And I remember there was this one other time, it was my mom's birthday, and I wanted to make her a surprise and get her flowers. And I got her the flowers and gave it to her and everything. I went to school. She works at the school that I'm a part of. She's been an accountant for 27 years there. And so I got the flowers and gave them to her. And then the day after that, the bomb fell right in front of that flower store that I got it from. It was very dangerous. It's kind of funny and also kind of really depressing to hear about that.
Do you think that your perspectives on like life and death have changed since the war?
Yes, definitely. Um, Death was very scary to me, but after the war, I think it became more scary and also less scary at the same time because oh, everyone dies. You never know when you see the person for the very last time. But also on the other hand, it's just life and you get through it, I guess. It's very controversial. It depends on the case, I guess.
And did you like each day? Did you feel scared? Did you feel, you know what, like this is just my new life now? I have to live like this. Like, did you try to suppress whatever fear you felt?
Well, I didn't feel a lot of fear. I kind of got used to it. So whenever a bomb would fall like very close to me, that's when I would get scared. But most of the time, I was used to it, and I really tried to enjoy the moments with my friends and family because I never really knew when was the last time I was going to see them.
And so, what happened in 2016 that you guys decided, okay, now it's time to go?
Well, I was in ninth grade, and in ninth grade in Syria, that's when you take the national exam to pass middle school. So I took my middle school exam, and I did my concert, the graduating ceremony for middle school, and the day after that, I left for America. So the day of my graduating ceremony was the best and saddest day of my life because I was with my friends. I graduated with my friends. That was my dream, but also it was the last day of being at my home, and I didn't know when I was going to come back, and I didn't know when I was going to see my friends again. And that day we couldn't go back home until 4 o'clock in the morning, and we were going to leave for America at 7 o'clock in the morning because of the bombs that would fall in front of our house, like the day that I was leaving home forever. It was really bad.
So, it's possible that you almost didn't make it.
Yeah, because our visa was only valid until June 17th, and we entered America on June 10th.
Wow.
Yeah, we barely made it,
And
but
how,
we made it.
and how did you get out of Syria?
We went to Lebanon, to Beirut, and then from there to Qatar, and from Qatar to America. But on our way there, we were chased by terrorists. So the driver was like driving really like slumpy ways, and it was very shady. We asked him what he was doing, and he wasn't answering. He just told us to not get scared, but we knew because there was this place that terrorists would stop you. It's called Hajiz al Malyon, and if they're able to chase you from there, they would take you for ransom, and they would want really a lot of money, a lot. And so the driver was able to make them lose us. So we made it.
So, so you left from Holland. You went. How did you get out of Holland to Lebanon?
Um,
Did you go through Damascus? How did you go?
Oh, there's this path called Khanasir. I don't know about now, but it used to be the only path that people would take to Lebanon. So we took that path, and even though it was dangerous, we had to go out of there. So we made it to Lebanon, and then from there, 2 days later, we left for Qatar, and from Qatar to JFK.
Do you know which groups were there on the road waiting for people?
No,
You don't know which one
no,
was that followed you?
but there were a lot of security and a lot of like searching for bags and everything. Yeah.
And did anyone else stop you, or it was just that group that tried to follow you?
A lot of soldiers from the government stopped us for searching bags and everything. But yeah,
What were they looking for?
they were mostly looking if you had anything dangerous like knives or guns or anything. Yeah,
And it was you, your mom, your dad, and who else left with you?
and my sister and my brother. Yeah,
And how old is your brother?
um, we moved in 2016, so 3 years ago. He was 8 years old.
Oh.
Yeah.
And did you think that you were going to be able to go back to Syria anytime soon after that?
I really wanted to, but deep down I didn't think so. No, because it was getting more and more dangerous, and I didn't think I would be able to go back.
So you took everything that you thought you would need for a good amount of time.
Yes, my family wasn't able to take all the pictures that they had, but I took all of my childhood pictures, and the clothes were already enough. So the pictures were the only things besides clothes that I was able to take with me, and that's very, very precious to me. I can't ever lose them.
The pictures?
Yeah.
What was that moment like packing up all your stuff?
I was crying the entire time when I was fine. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that I was leaving my home and my friends. Even though it was war, I was kind of used to that lifestyle. So the fact that I was leaving everything and starting a new life was very overwhelming to me. Yeah, it was overwhelming.
And when you got to America, what was it? What was it like? What were the first few days, months like?
Oh, when I arrived to America, I was like, oh my God, I'm in America, the best country, the coolest country in the world. I was very happy. I obviously didn't speak a lot of English, so it took me a lot of time to practice and better my speaking in English. And yeah, it took me some time to make friends too because I arrived in the summer, and mostly over the summer people travel and a lot of activities don't happen. So in the summer, it hit me that, oh, I'm away from my friends and I really need to make new friends. So when I started school, I was in ESL, but then I tested out after a week and I switched to regular level. And that's when I thought I was with the cool Americans and I was in high school. I was going to be with the popular people. It was really cool. Yeah. I liked it. It took me, but honestly, it took me a lot of time to adjust because of the lifestyle and the way they think and the way they act. Um, I mean, no offense, but like I feel like Americans get. I mean, they complain about little things, but when I was looking at the bigger picture, and because I went through so many things, like I had electricity in my house now, and I had water. Some people would complain about not having a charger with them, and I would just laugh at their face like why would you ever think that? I didn't even have water. You have friends, you have your family, you're alive. Like that's the greatest thing that you could ever have.
So do you think that now, after having lived through, so many years of war, you see life differently and you value life differently?
Yeah, I started valuing the little things that I have in life, like my friends, my family, my health. Every day when I wake up, I thank God that I'm alive and that I have a roof on my head and that I have legs and arms because it's it's truly a privilege to have that in your life because the what makes life really great is the little things that you have, and so I really started appreciating that. Yeah, and the fact that I survived by chance so many times makes me appreciate life so that much more.
And so now, do you think that, um, no, I was going to ask you, let's see, back to life in America. So, what are, what was the hardest part of being in America
Um,
at the beginning?
at the beginning,
Or even
to
now, what the hardest part is?
I feel like the way that people think, I still haven't adjusted to that a lot, and being Syrian, I guess, too, because even when I told my Armenian American friends that I was from Syria, they thought that I was kind of from the Middle Ages, and they started asking me, "Oh, so do you know what an ice cream is, or have you ever had a pizza?" Like, oh, I like Syria is a modern country. It was unfortunate, but I happened to come from a war, but I did live a good life before I came to America. So I feel that like when I say I'm Syrian, people just like take a step back and like, oh, okay, she's Syrian. She went through all that, so I guess we should treat her differently. But no, I like to be treated the way that all humans are.
And what was the best part about being in America?
The opportunities that I had because the hardworking person in America always gets to the goal that they want and even beyond because there are always new opportunities and the people that see the potential in you, they always push you to be a better person. Yeah.
And so, like, opportunities. So, what what has been different for you? Like, are there opportunities that you didn't have in Syria that you have now in America? Like, what are examples?
Well, academically in Syria, I participated in English language competitions and I was qualified for the nationals, but because of the war, I couldn't go to Damascus to participate. And also, there was another competition for English. I was even younger from that, and I won the competition. I was gonna see the first lady, but I couldn't because it was starting to get dangerous, and my parents couldn't send me there. But here, in America, I became part of the National Society of High School Scholars, the Society of Torch and Laurel, the National Honor Society of my school, the National French Honor Society, and the National Society of Future Scientists and Technologists. And I met many Nobel Prize winners that saw the potential in me and always encouraged me to continue to do research and to continue to be curious about science because I'm very interested in science. And yeah, I feel like I had a lot more opportunities. I was even interviewed by a radio station. I was chosen anonymously by as a student of a month. My school rewarded me a lot as a giver of my to my school as a service and community service person. And yeah, I feel like the people that do the hard work in America get rewarded fairly, and that's what I love the most about that.
I think you're going to university this year, right?
Yes,
What are you
I'm
going,
going to Drury University.
and what are you going to study?
I'm going to study biology as pre-med track, and I want to become a physician in the future.
And okay, this isn't my question, but it seems like to you education is really important. You said you studied under like a candle back in Aleppo, and
Yeah.
you're really valuing all the different. You're part of so many competitions, and you value all these different educational opportunities here in America. Um, why do you think it matters to you so much?
Well, I'm really curious about the world and the things that I'm surrounded by, and I think by education, I think it's the best way to learn about it. And I also think that education, for me, it's the only thing that people can't take it away from me, my identity and my education. And so I think it's very important.
And another question, I remember it now. Do you define, like in America, do you define yourself as a Syrian refugee? Like, how do you think you see yourself, and how do you think people see you?
I see myself as an immigrant, but I feel like people see me as a refugee and Syrian that doesn't know what happened, or like has like very like old-fashioned thoughts and doesn't really know what's really going on in the world. Yeah.
And do you think in college you'll be able to change that perception?
I'm really trying to do that because I feel like in college people are more open-minded and more accepting. So yeah, yeah, I'm really trying to do that.
And how often do you think you talk about Syria and the Syrian war? Because clearly Syria, it's where you grew up, it impacted you.
Yeah.
So how often do you think you talk about it, and how much do you think it's going to continue to be a part of your life now that you're even in a different country?
I still talk about it a lot. I talk about it as much as the day that I moved to America. I mostly talk about it with my American Armenian friends. Not many people, like only my close, very close friends in high school knew that I'm Syrian, but the other ones just know that I'm Armenian, not a Syrian Armenian, because when my teachers found out, one of my teachers, when he found out that I was a Syrian, he stepped back and he was like, "Oh, so you're Muslim?" Like, I can't do anything to you. And so I felt very offended, and I was like, no, like I'm a Christian that grew up in Syria, and that shouldn't change anything about the way that you treat me. And so after that, I was very cautious about telling people that I'm Syrian. So I didn't really want to do it, but I didn't tell really everyone that I was Syrian. Yeah. It just happened that people viewed me differently, and I got very frustrated by that, and so I decided to tell them that I'm just Armenian, I guess. But in college, I'm really trying to change that because I don't want to hide my identity. I'm proud of who I am, and I'm not going to force anyone to accept it, but the people that already are open-minded enough to do that will accept me.
Have you ever gotten into debates with people about like what the cause of the war is in Syria and why the conflict's happening?
In America?
Yeah.
Yes, so many times. Because people in America believe that it was the government's fault, but because the media tells them that way, and it's really not their fault that they believe it that way because that's all they hear from the media. But I really try to change that, and when they don't believe me, like I saw it with my eyes, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen that way. And when I tell them and they don't believe me, I just get really frustrated and outraged. But I'm just trying to like find ways to debate without getting in an argument, really, because I've gotten in a lot of arguments to trying to defend my country, and I get offended very easily when people say that, oh, like Syria is a bad country and the people there are the worst and everything. That's why.
And do you think that like what is your hope for Syria for the next 5, 10 years? What do you hope for the country?
I really hope it gets better and there's permanent peace in Syria, because there is peace now, but it's not permanent. There's always a risk of falling bombs and everything. I just really hope there's peace so that people, even the ones that just want to visit, so that people could come back, because I really, really want to go. I miss it a lot.
And do you think there should be any type of justice for Syria when the conflict ends? Should there be some type of tribunal? Should there be any type of like monetary aid?
Absolutely. There should be monetary aid, because Syria, before the war, used to be one of the very few countries in the world that didn't have any national debt to any other countries. And now it has probably the most debt. And so I think the countries that affected on Syria's war, this Syria's peace, should help Syria to rebuild, like monetarily.
And should anyone be punished, like through a court?
Um, that's the other governments and their choice. I'm not sure about that.
Do you think that's a decision Syria, the Syrian government should make? Should they create a court to try the terrorists?
Um, I think so. I think so, yes. But it's mostly the other countries that sent the terrorists. That's the other countries' decision to do what they want to do with them.
Which countries do you think are the main actors?
Um, I can't really answer that question.
And for the Armenian community in Syria, what do you hope for them?
I really hope the Armenian community grows stronger and they stay united, the way they are from the war and even more.
And what do you hope for yourself?
I really hope that I make Syrians proud because I can never forget where I came from. Even in America, I'm represented as a Syrian, Armenian, and soon to be American, and I'm very proud of that. And I really hope that whatever level that I reach, I make my community proud and myself proud.
That's beautiful. Thank you.